One person is responsible for this mess, and that's the Prime Minister. That's right. He caused this mess by attacking Canadian citizens and taking away their freedoms. The rest of the world is moving on. Other countries all around the world are lifting restrictions. Provinces across the country are doing exactly the same, but we've got this holdup. The Prime Minister is hunkering down, and out of spite and personal pride, refusing to lift these unjustified and unscientific restrictions. If he would only do so, then the truckers could get back to work and the other protesters could go back to their lives and everything in Canada would get back up on its feet and we could get back to working on giving people control of their lives. Yeah. Well, on October 28, 2020, the finance minister promised Canadians they would have deflation. For the Prime Minister's benefit, that means prices go down. Today, the Bank of Canada confirmed that we have inflation. Again, for those who don't think about monetary policy, that means prices go up. So everything they said would go down is going up, and everything they said is going up is now going down. Now that the Prime Minister has himself spinning in circles and saying his own name here on the floor of the House of Commons, will he finally admit that what we have in this country is Justin...
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we've seen over the past many weeks Conservatives simply try to play attacks and fling mud and lay blame and distract when the reality is Canadians deserve support. Canadians deserve a government like ours that continues to invest to support them with historic investments in infrastructure and housing, with supports for families and seniors. The Conservatives continue to complain that we were investing too much through the beginning of this pandemic to support Canadians, and what we've seen is our economic recovery is actually better than most of our peers because we were there for Canadians.
The honourable member for Carleton.
Well, the Prime Minister got confused when he was asked, what is this famous middle class he's always talking about? It turned out, he said, it's those people who live off their income instead of their assets. Except that inflation hits folks who live off income the hardest because their paycheck is worth less, while helping those people like him who live off of ancestral assets. Their assets appreciate and inflate in value. So maybe the reason he doesn't think about inflation is because he benefits from it. For example, can the Prime Minister tell us how much his mansion in the Laurentians has inflated in price since he took office?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, we see the Conservatives choosing to focus on me when they should be focused like we are on Canadians.
Mr. Speaker, while the member opposite concerns himself supposedly with the freedom of Canadians to protest illegally, we're going to continue to stand with Canadians who had their lives disrupted by the illegal blockades and protesters who took such lengths to try and shut down our economy.
I just wish his government would respect the thousands of people who are fighting for their livelihoods right now, who are trying to do the best to get this country back on track. They've shown no respect for the people. This country right now is like a raw nerve, and the Prime Minister is jumping up and down on it again and again with his inflammatory rhetoric. We're talking about people who have 14-year-old kids that are suicidal after 2 years of lockdowns. I just spoke to a waitress whose business was wiped out by lockdowns. I'm talking to truckers who've been serving food on our plates throughout this, and these are the very people, honest, hardworking, shirt off your back type of people that this Prime Minister keeps attacking.
I've already answered that question. However, I understand that the opposition wants to keep this line of questioning because they prefer talking about anything other than Budget 2018, which includes so many positive initiatives for the middle class and those working hard to join it. One of these is the Canada Workers Benefit, which we are not only strengthening, but we are also making accessible to an additional 300,000 low-income workers. The opposition will stay focused on us, but we will continue to focus on Canadians.
Order. 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 As I said earlier, members don't have confidence in the public to make decisions and assessments about things that are said in this place and the questions and the answers and the quality thereof. Members ought to understand that the Speaker is not empowered to comment on any of those things. Members should listen. The honourable member for Carleton.
The Prime Minister wants to talk about the budget. So in what year will it be balanced?
Hey.
A Poilievre government will repeal Justin Trudeau's anti-energy laws to allow us to build Canadian pipelines with Canadian workers using Canadian steel to bring Canadian energy to Canadian consumers. Furthermore, we will repeal C-69. We will also repeal C-48. C-48 bans us from shipping Canadian energy off the northwest coast of British Columbia. I am announcing today that I will repeal Bill C-48 as well. And I will replace these anti-energy laws with new laws that protect the environment, consult First Nations and provide them with paychecks, and give quick decisions on proposed energy projects.
The independence of the Bank of Canada from the government of the day is a really important principle that ensures the stability and the good reputation of Canada in international economic circuits, in international economic circles. It is something that is a source of pride and a source of stability, not just for Canadians, but for Canadian businesses, for Canadian investors and investments, for investors coming into Canada to know that we have a robust and rigorous central bank that is independent from political machinations or interference. The fact that one of the leading candidates for the Conservative Party of Canada, the leader of the opposition, seems to profoundly either misunderstand that or not care about the facts at all is somewhat disappointing in an era where we need more responsible leadership, not less. But that is a decision, obviously, for members of the Conservative Party to weigh in on, not for me.
You've been quite forceful this morning about your lack of trust in both the Prime Minister and now recently you don't seem to be very pleased with the appointment of Ms. Freeland as Prime Minister. I don't understand why your government does not just come forward in the House of Commons, a place that your party has fought very strongly recently to be able to go into and vote against the government and attempt to bring them down. Why do you still not just say, okay, we're going for it?
We are going to use our strengthened numbers and increased powers in this minority parliament to expose the truth and hold the government accountable for Trudeau's corruption and chaos. We are going to do what Canadians elected us to do, and that is to perform the function of a strong opposition. That was what we were elected to do, and until there's further notice, that is what we will continue to do.
But if there's corruption and chaos, does that not put upon you an obligation as the opposition to bring, or at least to attempt to bring, the government down?
You raise a very interesting question. At some point in the future, that decision will have to be made. Right now, our focus is doing exactly what Canadians elected us to do, to use our strengthened numbers to hold the government accountable, expose the full truth in Trudeau's We scandal, so that everyday Canadians know exactly what this Prime Minister has done and allow them to render judgment at the appropriate time.
Yes or no question, Mr. Chair. Prime Minister, you twice were found guilty of breaking the Ethics Act. After those two convictions, did you decide to read the Act?
You got 14 seconds, Prime Minister.
Yes, I have read the Act a number of times.
Are you aware of Section 21?
Yes, since I've read the Act, I'm aware of Section 21.
What does it say?
I can pull it up for you, but if you have it in front of you, you'll remind me.
Well, it says a public office holder, of which you are one, shall recuse himself or herself from any discussion, decision, debate, or vote in any matter in which, in respect of which he or she would be in a conflict of interest.
Now, what you've admitted today is not just that you were in a conflict of interest, but that you consciously recognized in your May cabinet meeting that such a conflict might exist. That it didn't just slide by your desk, that you were consciously aware that there was an inappropriate link to your family that would put you in a conflict. Why did you, at that moment, not call the ethics commissioner and recuse yourself?
That is simply not true, Mr. Poilievre. The issue of advancing issues for one's own, and by the way, the ethics commissioner is looking into this right now, and I fully trust his judgment on determining it. But at the same time, my concern around recusing myself was a question around perceptions, because I knew full well that this Canada Summer Students Grant program was not going to directly benefit my mother or my brother.
Your 16 seconds are up. Your 16 seconds are up.
Trudeau said he doesn't much care what his peers think of his views.
Everyone's got peer pressure at this age. I mean, there's pressure to smoke, there's pressure to do all sorts of stuff, and I've never been affected by peer pressure. Never.
Blind trust. What the Prime Minister is asking of taxpayers is that they blindly trust him, that he can spend a great fortune, amass enormous debts, set on track permanent and growing deficits, and trust that no one will ever have to pay for it. Canadians do not have inherited family fortunes. They know that budgets don't balance themselves. Will he tell them the real cost that his taxes will impose on everyday Canadians after the election?
Prime Minister.
For 10 years, Mr. Speaker, the member opposite and the Conservative government under Mr. Harper kept giving tax breaks and benefits to the wealthiest Canadians in the hopes that that would lead to growth and opportunity for all Canadians. Well, it didn't. It failed miserably because under Stephen Harper, Canada had the worst growth record since the Great Depression. We made a different choice to lower taxes for the middle class, to invest in folks who needed our help with things like the Canada Child Benefit, the Guaranteed Income Supplement increase for seniors, the Canada Workers Benefit. These are the things that have made a difference.
Member for Carleton.
Well, isn't it funny to listen to a trust fund baby lecturing Canadians about being too rich?
That's right.
He says that people who take the bus are too rich and therefore should lose their transit tax credit. Soccer moms and hockey dads, Prime Minister says they're too rich, so he takes away their children's fitness tax credit. At the same time, he forces these same working class families to pay for his taxpayer-funded nannies. Will he put aside the hypocritical class warfare and tell us the true cost of his tax increases that he would bring in if he got reelected?
Speaker, this Prime Minister has gone across the country accusing our small businesses, avoiding paying their fair share, attacking them as, quote, wealthy cheats. Mr. Speaker, those are the words of the Prime Minister. Now he wants us to cry crocodile tears for him because people are asking questions about the bills that he's going to have to pay under these proposals. Under the proposal, Mr. Speaker, a small business owner will pay as high as 73% of his passive income, whereas this Prime Minister will pay almost a third less on his public pension. How is that fair?
Honourable Prime Minister.
It's always the question, Mr. Speaker, whether the Conservatives actually believe what they're saying or they just choose to make it up as they go along. Because the numbers that they put forward have absolutely no basis in reality.
I'm going to ask you again because nobody believes you when you say you don't know how much money your family has got from the wheat group. So you've had a month to look into that. You knew you were going to testify here. Again, how much money total have your brother, mother, and spouse received from this organization? How much?
That information has been publicly shared, but I will highlight.
Well, then tell me what it is.
My mother
How much?
has
just the dollar figure.
Throughout her life.
The dollar figure, Prime Minister.
In various ways, and is
How
proud
much?
of the work that she's done, and I'm proud of her
How
as well.
much? I'm looking for a dollar figure.
We can get that number for you if you like. It's been out in the media.
Let's go back to Ottawa. The Prime Minister today apologizing for his role in a scandal that's really engulfed his government for more than a week now. Justin Trudeau admitting he should not have been involved in a high-level decision that chose the We Charity to run a massive $900 million government program to help Canadian students. As you can imagine, there's outrage from the Conservatives, the NDP, the Bloc Québécois over the Prime Minister's direct family connections to that charity. The deal blew up after revelations that multiple members of the Trudeau family, including Justin Trudeau's mother and brother, had both received payments from the organization. Here's more from the Prime Minister today.
I know there are many questions and problems with the way this program is run about, and I know people have concerns about it. I get that. I made a mistake in not recusing myself immediately from the discussions, given our family's history. And I'm sincerely sorry about not having done that.
All right, let's bring in Conservative MP, finance critic Pierre Poilievre for his take on the scandal. Pierre, it's always good to have you with us on CTV News. You heard Justin Trudeau. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I should have known better. What do you think?
Well, listen, I think this whole program has been a scandal from day one. The problem isn't just that the Prime Minister failed to recuse himself. It's that he created a $900 million sole source contract for a family-linked organization that had paid his mother and brother over $300,000, even though this same program exists already within the public service. It's called the Canada Summer Jobs Plan. In other words, he didn't need to outsource any of it. All of his purported goals were easy to meet within the existing program run by public servants. But of course, had he simply run the money through the public service, he would not have been able to award this juicy contract to an organization that had paid his family over $300,000. We also want to know, how is it possible that he didn't know his family had received over $300,000 in contracts? Is it normal for them to get these kinds of arrangements from groups that deal with the government of Canada?
It was a total of $209,000, $620 plus 16 cents for the expenses for the individuals, which works out to roughly
Rappel au règlement, Madame la Présidente. Mais maintenant,
Point of order, Madam Chair. I think that our chair has returned and is now accessible and available. So I think you're dealing with a point of order currently, Mr. Chairman, and the time has expired.
Not, and I want a point of order, Mr. Chair. Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, point of order, recognizing point of order, Mr. Poilievre.
On two separate occasions, the Liberal Vice Chair has tried to interrupt my testimony by falsely claiming that I was out of time, even though I kept time, and I can show definitively that my time has not expired. So I've asked that I be granted the opportunity to get an answer to a very simple and straightforward question that the Kielburger brothers seem to have a lot of difficulty answering, which is the total value of all the cash and in-kind benefits that have been paid in the fees or expenses for the Trudeau family, including Mr. Trudeau, his wife, his mother, and his brother. Simple question. I've been trying to get an answer for 2 minutes, but regularly interrupted by the Vice Chair.
Okay, we'll allow for an answer, and then your time is up, Mr. Poilievre, and then we'll move on to the next questioner. We'll give some time for the answer.
So again, we've never, of course, paid any expenses or honorariums to Mr. Trudeau, but to Margaret Trudeau, Alexander Trudeau, and Sophie Trudeau over the past, 10 plus years of various speaking events.
The total, please. Get to it.
It's trying to do the quickest math that I can here. Adding it together is roughly $216,000 in honorariums, and roughly $209,000 in expenses. And then you could, which of course was not paid to them. That goes, we just pay it directly to a hotel or a flight. And if you add that together, it's a little over $400,000 that would have been all the expenses over the past decade for 42 different events that they attended and spoke on the stage.
Justin Trudeau has caused a political emergency. While the rest of the world and provinces across Canada are beginning to remove restrictions and mandates, Justin Trudeau decided to pile new ones on, targeting truckers' livelihoods. And now he's got protests right around the country. And now he's dropping in the polls, desperately trying to save his political career and save face for himself. The solution is staring him in the face. All he has to do is listen to the experts, do what other countries are doing, and that is to eliminate these mandates and restrictions to let the protesters, including the truckers, go back to their jobs and their lives.
And we have some breaking news coming out of Ottawa, where the Conservative leadership race is concerned.
The government called them names, froze his bank account, and brought in an Emergency Act attack on his freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, people feel like they've lost control of their lives. You know, Mark Twain said, the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why you were born. Why is the most important question you'll ever ask whenever you do anything. So why am I running for Prime Minister? I'm running for Prime Minister to put you back in charge of your life so that by making Canada the freest nation on earth.